Hi, my name is Tom Quinn, and I'm running for state representative from the 165th District here in Pennsylvania. That makes up the borough of Morton, parts of Springfield, parts of Marple, and also parts of Radnor. I want to take a few minutes today to tell you a little bit about who I am and why I decided to do this. I've been telling people that it's time to expect more in this district, and I think that we're ready for that, and I think I'm the right person to do that. I grew up in Westchester and went to Henderson High School, and then went on to Bucknell University. I was a double major at Bucknell in political science and in theater. And the more I've done this, the more I've realized that the theater end of things is very important when it comes to politics. The first thing I pursued was my theater degree. I went to work at the Walnut Street Theater in Philadelphia and then spent 2 years out in Los Angeles as literally a starving actor. After that time, I realized I wanted to do something with a little bit more meaning to it, and I came back to Westchester and got my master's in education to be a history teacher. My first position was at Gordon Middle School, teaching 7th grade history. If you think you have a difficult job, I would challenge you to spend one day as a 7th grade history teacher. Gordon was in Coatesville, and Coatesville, if you know that community, is a community with a lot of challenges. There was a lot of violence in the school, drugs were a rampant problem, there was a knife brought to school while I was there. It was a challenging place to teach, to say the least. My first month there, at the end of that, my 30th day of teaching, at the end of the day, I was in the teacher's room after a very long day, very tired, and I heard a terrible noise outside. And I went outside, and I saw a girl who had jumped from the 3rd floor. I ran back inside, told them to call 911, and I ran out to her, and I held her hand. And for the 15 minutes or so it took for the ambulance to come and take her away, she kept saying over and over again, "I hate myself, I hate myself, I hate myself." I think we all care about kids a lot, and I know I certainly did up to that point, but that moment is something that I've reflected on a lot over the past 10 years, as to just how fragile kids' lives are and how important it is that we get it right when it comes to the kind of policies that we make for kids. And I haven't forgotten that. I left Gordon after 1 year and I got my dream job, which was to be a high school history teacher. That's what I went back to do. I always wanted to be that guy talking about American history. When most kids were bored, I was fascinated by it. And I got a job at Central Bucks East High School in Doylestown, teaching American history and American government. And I thought that's where I was going to be for the next 30 years. But as all of you know, life never moves in a straight line for any of us. My wife Susan and I were expecting our first child in the fall of 2002, and Nate decided to arrive in the summer of 2002, almost 6 weeks early. After talking it over, Susan and I decided that I would take family medical leave to be home with Nate after she went back to work. And we decided to make that move permanent. And for the past 5.5 years, I've been a stay-at-home dad, something I never expected to be. And we were blessed 3.5 years ago with our daughter Samantha. Now, that's not all I've done in the past 5.5 years. I also teach at Philadelphia University, teaching American history and American government. I've also written some plays for the Walnut Street Theater, and I got involved in local politics when we moved out here to Springfield. We moved out here to Springfield after spending 2 years in Philadelphia to be closer to where Susan works, because we were looking for a community that we could call home, and that's what Springfield is. I got involved in politics because there were many issues that were important to me. Now, the big question is, why would I take what is rather an idyllic life with 2 beautiful children, a wife I love very much, and a beautiful home, and mess all that up and go into politics? Well, I tell people that there's 3 issues really that bring me to this race. The first issue is the one that people have told me the most about. I teach 18, 19-year-old kids American history, and I work in a lot of politics. And it's not so easy to engage kids that age in real discussions about public policy. They find it pretty boring. But you mention the word environment to them and they come alive. They get just where we are when it comes to our environment. They get the fact that global warming is not a debate, it's a fact. They get the idea that we need action and we need leaders with vision on that to make some tough choices on how we're going to find better energy sources that's going to keep our environment clean and make us a safe, productive society. So the environment is one of the key issues that I want to work on along with Greg Vitale in the state legislature. The other issue I talk about is the issue I know the most about. I'm a teacher. That's my profession. I know just how state policy affects kids in our classrooms and teachers as well. And to sum it up, what I think about education, I think it's very important that we teach our kids, not just test them. No Child Left Behind is a wonderful idea, but the actual implementation of that law means there's a tremendous burden placed on our school districts and on our kids in terms of testing. We need to find education policies that work, things such as the growth model, which measure exactly how much kids learn within a given year, rather than putting them up to one standard of one-size-fits-all kind of education. I think it'd be a good thing to actually have a high school teacher be in the state legislature to help make those kind of policies. The last issue is the issue that I care the most about. I start every history class I teach with my favorite quote from history. A famous American once said, "It is history that teaches us to hope." And I believe in that very much, that very concept of hope, and that we're a hopeful society and a hopeful people. And if you look at our history, you see so many examples of that. From the very beginning of our country, the idea that a bunch of rebels could defeat the greatest country in the world was insane in 1776. And yet we were able to do that. And that gives us an example of just the kind of hope that exists within our history. To think that Rosa Parks could be the one to stay on that bus, that she wasn't going to move that day because her feet were tired, and she was tired of moving to the back of that bus. That action by one person is what led to the Civil Rights Movement. That shows the tremendous power of people and the tremendous power of hope within our history. And maybe my favorite example was President Kennedy, when he said that within a decade we would put a man up on the moon. And the scientists at NASA scratched their heads and said he was nuts. And yet we did it. Time and time again there have been tremendous challenges placed in front of us that people said they couldn't be done, that they were impossible, and yet we've achieved it. That's who I think we are. I think we're a nation and a people of hope. If I'm right about that, if we really are a nation and a people of hope, then we cannot be okay with the fact that there are 47 million Americans without health insurance. If we really are a people of hope, we can't be all right with the fact that today, almost 900,000 Pennsylvanians have no health insurance. If we are going to be a people of hope, we can't be okay that almost everybody who I'm speaking to right now is one major illness away from their family facing financial ruin. I don't think that's who we are. I think there are tough challenges in front of us that we can solve if we decide that we're going to. And healthcare, to me, is the preeminent challenge right now. I want to go to Harrisburg and do everything I can to make sure that every Pennsylvanian has access to affordable, quality healthcare, because that's the right thing to do. It's expensive, it may take sacrifices, but we need to get it done, because the word care is in healthcare, and every single one of us deserves that from our society and from each other. I mentioned that I was a starving actor for a while, and I got one of the worst jobs you can get if you're an actor. I was the understudy to Hamlet in a production of Hamlet in Philadelphia Shakespeare in the Park many years ago. There were 956 lines in that production. I learned every single one of them, and I never got to go on. What I've done ever since for the past 15 years is anytime I can think of a line from Hamlet that's even reasonably appropriate, I try to use it. Toward the end of that play, Hamlet, who's a guy who can't make up his mind, which is somebody I've never been accused of being, says, "The readiness is all." Well, I'm ready, and I think the 165th is ready, and I think together we can make our very own history of hope right here in the 165th.